afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 1to1help Women's Day session on Leading with Impact, where we are going to be learning about how women are shaping the future of work in today's world. My name is Neha, and I'm a counseling psychologist working with 1to1help for the past 6 years now, and I'll be your moderator for the day. All right. So, thank you all for taking out your time for this session. And before we start, I would like to inform you that if you have anything that's coming to your mind, any thoughts, anything that you would like to share while we are discussing, please feel free to put it in the chat box. Yeah. So all of you will be on mute by default. So please feel free to put in your thoughts, share your responses in the chat. And for any questions that you may have in your mind, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box, right? We'll have some time towards the end to take up the questions that come in. All right. Okay. With that, I would just like to set a bit of context for why we are here today, right? You may be aware that 8th March is globally observed as the International Women's Day. And the data shows us that while women constitute approximately 28% of the workforce at the entry level, this figure drops down to approximately 18 at the managerial level. Right? So that's a significant drop we have noticed. And there are a lot of statistics and a lot of research in the recent years that has been done in this area to highlight the ongoing challenges in achieving gender parity in leadership positions across India's corporate landscape. This year, our aim is to help you understand more about how women in leadership positions are making an impact in the workplace and for us to delve deeper into learning about their unique experiences. So before we get into interactions with our speaker for the day, I want to do a quick reflective exercise here. And in this, I want you all to think about a woman who you look up to in your life and tell me about a few qualities of her that you admire. Any woman that you look up to and qualities that you admire, please feel free to put in your responses in the chat. Okay, I can see a lot of you are saying your mother. Lovely. Caring, patience. She's smart, sharp, efficient. Yes. Lovely to see the responses coming in. Grandmother. Yes. Smart and organized. Mother-in-law. My client manager. And I can see words like resilience, strength, clarity of thoughts. Yes, that's lovely to see. Overall personality, yeah. A balanced individual. Yes. All right, that's lovely to hear. So I see a lot of similar terms being used by a lot of you about how what you admire the most about these women in your life is probably the hardworking nature, their ability to maintain balance in their lives, different characteristics such as their nature or the caring nature that they have, being considerate, being hardworking, being patient. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this particular question. And I hope that these are qualities that we observe, we learn from, and we also learn how to imbibe them in our own lives to inspire others around us, right? So that is where I think the real learning takes place, where we are able to really inculcate these values and also inspire other people around us. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. I would now like to welcome our esteemed speaker for the day to take forward this event. Sheena, would you like to say a few words to the audience here?
Hey, everybody. Absolutely delighted to be here. Delighted for two reasons. One, it's always good to meet a set of women who are aspiring to do better. Second, I just learned in the morning, an ex-colleague sent me a note that SAP financial organization moved into Fionir and is going to be a part of this session too, because they are now aligned with 1to1net. So really good. I'm hoping that some of my old team members and people that worked with me are also here. So a warm hello to all of you.
Thank you so much, Sheenam. So, a little bit of introduction about Sheena Mori, who's here with us today. She's the managing director at Broadridge India, which is a global fintech leader in helping clients capitalize on communications, technology, data, and intelligence solutions. Sheenam has worked and held numerous positions of responsibility in the past 2 decades in organizations such as SAP, Dell, and Edgeworth, along with Broadridge. She finds her interests in applying her knowledge and vast work experience to drive end to end results, enable digitization, and improve the growth and strategy aspects of organizations. So, thank you so much for being with us today, Sheenam, and lovely to have you here. I think we would like to begin the session by just understanding a little about what has your leadership journey been like? How did you start, and what has helped you reach where you are today?
Thank you very much. Great question. Let me take you back to when I started, right? And some of you may not even have been born then, but that's okay. I'm still young. Um, started off with a startup, and the startup was called Citycorp Information Technology Industries Limited. You would wonder why startup if it has a Citycorp name to it, right? So COSL, Citycorp Overseas Software Limited, was the captive of Citibank, and 15 people left COSL to start Citl in 1991, with an ambition to sell to non-city customers and really convert a cost center into a profit center. They hired 25 of us from the road, and that's how my professional journey started in 1992. Because you're a part of the startup, you have to do a lot of things that you would normally not do, and possibly all of you will not want to do. But it helped me become who I am today, doing every single role that was out there available, learning through those roles, collaborating, making things happen, have been really a part of my journey. Some very proud moments of my career with Citl that became iFlex, is now Oracle, is the fact that I was a part of the team that wrote FlexCube, and really, uh, you know, that's something that gives me pleasure even today, that Flexio is number 2 banking product in the globe. And if one was a part of that, a team of about 65 of us who wrote and co-created FlexCube. Some things that I've learned, Neha, over time, actually they're all summed up here, right? And I would call them the language of the P's. Purpose, right? As a leader, do you define and simplify clearly and articulate very, very well the purpose? So the first P is purpose, right? That's something that I think really defines me as a leader. The next P is passion. um, are you passionate about what you do? When you get up in the morning, do you want to do something different and really make it happen? That's the next P for me. The third P is pride, right? Are you proud of what you're doing, right? Are you really uh, doing it with energy, and giving back, right? Giving back is really important. So the pride aspect is really, really key. So purpose, passion, pride. The next one that comes into the picture is really persistence, right? And we have talked about perseverance. We have talked about a lot of other things. But are you persistent? Because life is a sinusoidal wave. It'll go up, you will fall. What goes up always comes down. At some point of time, that all comes back again. Are you persistent? Are you learning continuously by when you succeed and when you fail is really important. So the fourth P is persistence. And the last P that I would put over there is really patience. It's a long journey, right? When I started off, the retirement age was 58. Today, there is no retirement age. So we have a long 4, 5, maybe 6 decades of career when we start off. Sometimes shit happens. Just be patient, right? Don't give up. Maybe things happen at home that are necessary and you need to give priority as a woman. That's okay. Don't give up, right? So be patient. So I'll repeat it again: purpose, passion, pride, persistence, and patience. Really, really important for us, all of us in the leadership journey.
That's so lovely to hear, Sheenam. And I think you've summed it up really well for all of us here to, have some sort of a guideline on the path that we want to take for our future moving forward. So, thank you so much for sharing your experience and the fact that you started off with a startup, right? It shows us a lot about how you've had to fill in different shoes, you've maybe had to take up different roles, and doing all of that with persistence, with passion, can be quite difficult. It can be quite challenging. And I'm wondering, were there certain gender stereotypes being a woman in the industry that you faced, and what helped you sort of tackle those, and what can women do today to tackle stereotypes at work that they may face?
Good question. And uh, how many of you watch movies? Show of hands through emojis. A lot, right? And how many of you watch Mrs. on Netflix? I think Netflix or Prime Video, I'm not sure which one, but Mrs. Right? What did Mrs. tell me? Mrs. told me that the stereotypes that we thought had gone away still exist in some part of the world. If somebody is making a movie on it, okay, it's really important for us to recognize that those stereotypes exist. So you cannot wish away those stereotypes. Um, in that movie, the woman takes a lot of shit before she finally throws up, right? And yet, when she goes back to her paternal home, where she should be getting the maximum comfort, her mother says, make a cup of tea for your brother who's just come back from college, though she knows she's going through so much trauma, right? That's culture and that stereotype that we need to fight against. I think most of us who are in urban backgrounds, who have had the pleasure to grow up with parents who are forward looking, I'm one of them, um, have had to deal with lesser gender stereotypes. But stereotypes exist. And they can be really, really not something that people understand, but happens, right? For example, 2 years back, a leader in one of my previous organizations called me up and said, we are now started coming back, we are having physical meetings, and suddenly people believe it's my job to arrange for snacks in the meeting. So I said, don't do it, right? Get yourself a bottle of water, get yourself a plate of samosas, and don't get it for anybody else. And when they ask you, say it, right? Say that it's not something that you will do, right? And it could be a rotation thing. One of the other things that I did in my previous or one of my previous organizations again was that when visitors come, we have women decked up in saris to welcome them. I said, why not men? Right? So stereotypes exist. They exist in our own minds. They exist in the minds of people around you. I think the best way to deal with stereotypes is A, to recognize and acknowledge them, right? Don't live with them. And B, what I have seen work for me is I go out there and I put it on the table. I get the elephant on the table. I said, hey, listen, you said this. I thought it had a bias in it. That this is what I felt, right? Did you really mean to do that? The person will never do it again. Trust you me. Nobody wants to be bad. Nobody, right? Most times, and I have seen 90 to 95% of the times it'll work. If it doesn't work, then you have to do other things. But biases exist, stereotypes exist. They exist in our own minds, right? We feel guilty when we leave our kids behind. We feel guilty when we leave our families behind and go on a travel. So they exist in our minds, they exist in somebody else's minds. We have to figure out how to handle them. Some need to be ignored, some need to be faced. My implore to all of you is that if it's affecting you and it's affecting your happiness, put it on the table. I'll give you another small example, right? During COVID, somebody reached out of the blue on LinkedIn and said, I need some advice. I need mentorship. I didn't know this person. I still haven't met this lady. And essentially, the thing was that she was on a break because she had to take care of two kids, and her husband was refusing to keep a servant at home. So I said, just ask your husband one thing: do you love me? And she just looked at me and said, what kind of question is that? I said, ask him that. No, he said, if you love me and my happiness is important to you, right, then we need the servant, because I will be happy if I'm working. And she did that. She wanted a full-time servant. They arrived at a compromise and had a servant that came at 6 in the morning and left at 7 in the evening. But if he had never told her husband and asked her husband that, okay, she would always have been unhappy, right? And she, in her mind, thought her husband will never agree. He did, right? So you just have to ask. That's how stereotypes get broken.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think the point you mentioned about calling someone out, right, when they are saying something or doing something that is hurtful to you or that is bringing out their own biases, it's a great way to really recognize it, firstly, and secondly, to bring awareness to the fact that, hey, what you're saying may not be the most appropriate thing to say, and this is how it's affecting someone. So that brings us to question our own biases and really think about the way we operate with different kinds of people in our lives.
Yeah.
So,
Do you respect and love yourself is the first question that I would ask you.
yes, it's very true. Yeah. I think at this point, I would love to, for my colleague to launch a poll question here for the audience to just take a look at and answer this from their own perspectives. Do you think workplaces provide equal leadership opportunities to men and women? Okay, we have this on for maybe 10 more seconds. All right. So I can see a lot of people are saying a few places do, but the answers on yes and no are quite divided. Most of you are saying that you have seen it. A lot of you are saying you haven't seen it also, and most of you are saying that a few places do. So that's an interesting statistic to have a look at, because it all comes down to how we are viewing the world and what is happening in the world around us. What are we noticing and observing? And is there a trend that is changing, right? Are things slowly evolving and changing? Because women in leadership positions, as the data suggests us so far, the numbers are not great. But I'm glad to see that some of you are saying that, yes, the change is happening slowly, which brings me to the next question I have for Sheenam over here about, women in leadership positions. Generally there is a lot of expectation, or there might be an image that women are more empathetic, women are more emotionally intelligent. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think there are certain life experiences that shape women to be this way?
I think we are wired differently, and we have to accept that, right? Um, God has given us the ability to care. So we are generally, I know it can sound biased, but we are generally the caregivers in the house. We are biologically the bearer of children. That's the role that we have in the society. Um, we take care of people. We like to build relationships and stuff like that. So um, I'm not sure about emotional intelligence. I think men have equal amount of emotional intelligence, but I think on empathy and really understanding different personas and what they need is something that women, in my opinion, in general, do better than men, right? Um, and therefore, there are a lot of roles now that are opening up in our in the space of the industry that we operate in the information technology industry, that are aligned to that, right? The role of a product manager, where you have to understand, what the customer wants. Okay, what does the company want? What does the regulator want? What does the market need? Right? And then basis all of those personas and different personas within each persona, really go and design the right product, the right roadmap, the right backlog, is really a role that a product manager, that a woman can do really well. A role of a user design experience, right, is again something that I believe a woman can do really well. So there are these entire new set of roles that have evolved in the last decade or so, that are so aligned to what a woman's strengths are. Um, and then you also have our academia that is moving from STEM to really STEAM, right? Where you have added the entire concept of arts into the STEM methodology, right? Where you get in creativity and you want to personalize experiences and stuff like that. That's again a place where women can get in and make it happen. In my own career, I think I have leveraged empathy quite a bit. At SAP, I was the first chief product owner of something that we built from scratch. It was an ambiguous role. It was not something that we had done earlier at labs in India, and I think that led me to believe that this is something that I can do well as a woman too.
That's lovely to hear, Sheenam. And I think your points about utilizing or harnessing women's strengths, right? Some of the things that maybe we are born with, maybe we are socialized to have more of, things like empathy.
Yeah,
It can really make a difference to how we operate and maybe the roles that we can be really good at.
yeah.
So I hope that our audience here can also relate to these experiences, and I'm sure they also have a lot of stories on along similar lines to share with us. And on that, can I request my colleague to launch the second poll here for the audience? No right or wrong answers to this, but this is just to get an opinion on what we've all seen, what we have observed and noticed. Do you think women and men are equally well versed in soft skills at work?
It's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
I love to see the answers.
Yeah, I can see, I think majority are saying that women display better soft skills. About 39% people are saying that I see similar soft skills in men and women. And about 3% are saying men display better soft skills. Very interesting results. So, yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on this. And I think, Sheenam, I would love to hear from you about the mental load that women often take up, especially with regard to work-life balance. Right, we now have women increasingly entering the workforce, and as a counselor as well, what I usually see in counseling sessions is this one common concern about work life balance, managing different roles and responsibilities. And that often leads to women feeling quite demoralized, dejected, burnt out, even resentful, right? So, do you have any suggestions on what women can do better to manage expectations and avoid what we call the superwoman syndrome?
Now, I like to go back to the soft skills piece, right? It's interesting women voted the way they did, or the people on this panel voted
Yeah.
what they did. Soft skills is about communication, it's about articulation, it's about networking, it's about carrying yourself, it's about presence, right? And I'm not sure how many women take the time to network, how many women take the time to build their presence, build their brand, gain visibility, right? So, soft skills is not about being soft, it's about really all those skills that you need to package yourself other than just the capabilities that you learn at work, right? So I would encourage women to rethink that question, okay, and ask themselves, what do they need to do? Now, coming back to the motherhood question, I think one of the things motherhood taught me was that networking is easy, right? And why do I say that? Now I have a son, and when my son was growing up, and people here on this panel, um, who have who have young children, and somebody who has both genders, right, at home, will know sons don't talk, right? So girls will come back home and blah, 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 this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this. Now I will ask my son, how's your day at school? Okay, fine, nothing different. It was the same. That's it. So I have no clue what's happened. So I would call up my son's friend's mom, who's a girl, right? And say, what did Minnie tell you today? Right? And then you need inputs, you need to figure out what's happening, specifically if you're a working mother and you're away, you go meet people, you network, you ask questions, you find and talk to strange people and say, oh, you are a parent of a third grader. My son is also in third grade, right? But in office, we don't want to go and meet somebody who's sitting next to you. Why? We feel shy. Motherhood taught me networking, that networking was easy, right? It was a big thing that I learned during my own growing up as a mother, right? And I would encourage every single woman here and every single man also we here actually to ask themselves, do they know their managers' peers? Do those people know you? How many times have you had a lunch or a coffee with them? How many people outside of your immediate team know you? It's important. Do that, right? Now, let me come back to the specific question that you had asked about roles and responsibilities. Motherhood teaches you a lot of things, okay? It dumps you with a lot of responsibilities you're not prepared with, right? How do you hold your baby the first time? How do you feed your baby the first time, right? It tells you that you can deal with ambiguity. It's so beautifully, no one prepares you, okay, to feed your baby the first time. It takes 2 3 days generally to get used to that, but you learn. It tells you that skills can be learned. You're not born with them. Like, men are not born with technology, men are not born with maths, men are not born with networking skills, right? They can be learned. Entrepreneurship, innovation, anything that you want can be learned. Motherhood teaches you that. Coming to the superwoman syndrome, I think all of us have it, right? And somewhere we have let go of the guilt. When I was my first job, and I did my first job for 15 years, but I think in my 10th year as working, I attended a seminar, an event in Leela Palace, and there was Meena Ganesh, who's a senior entrepreneur, talking. And she said, delegate what you can, which means if you can have somebody to cook for you, if you can have somebody to clean for you, if your baby needs help and you have to call an extended relative, do it, right? Don't feel guilty about it, right? The more you can free up time, the more you will grow, the more you will find time for yourself, right? So don't do everything yourself, get it done. That would be my advice.
Thank you so much, Sheenam. I think that makes a lot of sense to me, at least. I'm someone who really struggles to take help. So even hearing that, and I'm sure a lot of women do.
Shameless about taking help, Neha. I'm
Yeah,
telling you.
yeah,
Yeah. Men
absolutely.
do it all the time.
Yeah.
That's something that they do really well.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I think delegation and the art of just letting go, right? Not
Yeah.
trying to do everything by ourselves plays a huge role in preventing burnout and really exhausting ourselves completely.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I would love for my colleague to launch the third and the last poll for this event right now, because this is very well connected to what we were just talking about. And just to get the audience perspective on this as well. Have you ever felt guilty for prioritizing time for self care when you have a lot on your plate? I can see majority is saying that yes, they have felt guilty.
I'm sure. I would be
Yeah,
very surprised otherwise.
yeah, yeah. But I also see quite a few people saying that, you know, my me time is important for me and I don't feel guilty, I take it. And some are also saying that work or family usually takes a priority. All right. But yeah, the majority still sticks to the guilt. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on this.
Mm.
So I hope, this session is something that also motivates all of us to break free from that guilt and to seek help, to delegate where we can, as Sheena was saying. So I think given the time that we have, I would just like to have one more question with you, Sheenam. After that, we'll move to the audience Q&A. Uh, what would be the one thing, or maybe the top three things that you would like to share with the women in today's world and the next generation of women who are entering the workforce on how they can shape the future of work?
Um, enlist mentors, very important, right? The art of mentorship is really key because mentors tell you things that your managers cannot tell you. They can be very honest with you and they can help build you. Your ex managers are great mentors, right? So once they've moved out from being your manager, go out and ask them questions. Even today, when I do a role change, I go back to my ex managers and say, कर सकती हूँ कि नहीं कर सकती हूँ, types, right? So that's one piece of advice. The second piece of advice, spend 15 minutes if you cannot do more than that, but spend 15 minutes on yourself in a day. Do whatever gives you pleasure. Singing, listening to music, gardening, reading, just simply doing nothing, right? But 15 minutes in a day, give it to yourself. Show yourself some self love. Because if you love yourself, then somebody else will love you. If you respect yourself, somebody else will respect you. And finally, stand up for yourself, right? Because if you don't, nobody else is going to stand up for you, right? If you bring purpose, pride, patience, persistence, and passion to your role, and yet you believe that there is something around you that's not moving the needle ahead, talk about it. Those would be the three things, Neha, from me.
Thank you so much, Sheena. I think those make a lot of sense. And a lot of times we are so caught up with our own lives, we forget to take care of the basics,
Yeah.
right? And self care is all about going back to what our mind and body needs at the very basic level. And that enables us to operate well in any situation,
Yeah.
right? And
And
definitely,
nobody knows this better than you, right? Our bodies
yeah,
will recover, but the mind is
mhm,
fragile. You have
absolutely.
to give yourself that self love. You
Yeah.
have to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you won't get up in the morning feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah. This reminds me of a quote which goes like, we want a lot of things in our lives until our health goes for a toss. And then the only thing we want is good health, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that's a reminder for all of us here. And with that, we move to the questions. So please feel free to drop in any questions in the Q&A box, and we'll be taking up a few of them that's relevant. And we may not be able to address everything, but let's see what's coming in so far. All right. Um, okay, I think someone's asked a question about sometimes as a woman you struggle in your personal life, and even then you have to work. How do you manage that balance in between? So I'm guessing that you're referring to emotional, personal struggles, things that are taking a toll on your mental health, managing that with family and your work, right? That's the question. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question for me a little bit, Neha, again?
Yeah, yeah. So the question is about how do you basically manage your work when you're also going through certain emotional concerns or personal struggles of your own.
I think it's very important to compartmentalize life at that point of time. One of the things that I have seen work really well when I am in office or in an environment that if I define as office, if you're working from home, for example, I'm fully logged into work. At home, I'm switched off from work, right? In an environment that I define as home, I am switched off. In COVID, that's what happened, right? You get up, you go sit in front of your laptop, and you start working. And at the end of the day, you just go and sleep again. 2 weeks into COVID, I said, this is not happening. So, redefining your spaces is very important. Now, you may be in an emotional turmoil, and sometimes you may not be able to be your productive self. At that point of time, go and tell your manager, I'm going through some difficulties, I need space. People generally will give you space, but you have to say it, right? The other person needs to know there is a reason behind what's happening, and there is something in your life that needs a little bit of time. Say it, it's okay. Okay, being vulnerable is good. If
Mm.
it's too much, I would strongly recommend getting counseling help, right? I tell this to my people all the time. Going to a counselor is not bad, and I'm preaching to the preacher, but really just taking one session and venting out sometimes just helps, right? Because your mentor is not your counselor, your coach is not your counselor, your manager is not your counselor. Sometimes the husband will not understand what you're going through. You have to, at that point of time, take an additional help, even if it's one session, two sessions, whatever. Just do it. It's important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I can see the second question here that I see is quite relevant for all of us is how do we manage overthinking, right? And how do we take actions towards our goals? And especially as women, there is so much of social perception that we have to constantly deal with. How do we sort of keep that away and focus on our lives?
So, who's bothered about social perceptions, right? Are the people really bothered about you, or they are only creating biases? You let the world affect you. I'm telling you, that's the end of life, right? Uh, and world will have a problem with everything that you do. Oh, she's cut her hair. Oh, she's dyed her hair. Oh, she has not dyed her hair. Oh, she's fat. Okay. Oh, look at her. She's wearing such bright colors. The world will have a problem with everything that you do, right? If you look at yourself and like the way you are, it is okay. right? On my 50th birthday, I decided to stop coloring my hair, and I just stopped coloring my hair. It's okay, right? I like the way I look right now. So social expectations, I think, have to be dealt with in depending on who the cause of the social expectation is. Now, you can't do the same thing with the mother-in-law, for example, right? Mother-in-law is with you. You have to take care of how you manage that relationship, because at the end of the day, that relationship affects your marriage and affects the happiness of your marriage. So that needs a very different way of handling, but it needs a little bit more tact. It possibly needs a little bit of um, letting go at that point of time, right? Not letting things affect you. Um, overthinking. Overthinking comes because you are over getting onto a guilt trip. Did I do this right? Did I not do this right? Did I not do it? People will generally tell you if they are not happy with you, right? Will your parents not tell you? Will your in laws not tell you? Will your child not tell you? You will know. So don't overthink, right? Sometimes we just react to environments and say, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And it happens to the men also, it happens more to women. I understand that. But learn to pick up cues. If your husband's not reacting to something, if your parents are not reacting to something, your children are not reacting to something, your in laws are not reacting to something, it's okay. They're the most important people, right? What the Masi is saying or what somebody else is saying or what that uncle or aunt is saying is really not important. What the neighbor is saying is not important, right? So realize what are your priorities and manage those priorities and deal with those priorities. That is what I would tell.
That makes a lot of sense, Shinam. I think that's going to be super helpful if we all actually start to implement it in our own lives. And I see a lot of people asking about how do we improve our visibility. Even if I have the skills, sometimes I feel maybe afraid of speaking up, afraid of really telling my boss that, this is the work I'm doing. And that's also related to our self confidence in some sense, right? So,
Yeah.
how do we improve our self confidence and therefore our visibility?
See, brand building is really, really important. Good work will take you to a level. But after a particular level, and I tell this to everybody, I told this yesterday also to somebody in my office, and it was a man, that brand building and talking about what you're doing is important. The first time you do it, it's going to be really uncomfortable. The second time you do it, again, it's going to be uncomfortable. But the time you do it the fifth or the sixth time, it'll start to become better. Then by the time you come to my age, it'll become really, really easy. But what stops you from, when you're doing a one-on-one with your manager, sending a pager, right? Saying, hey, listen, boss, this is what I've done in the last 15 days. Okay, this is what I set out to accomplish. This is what I've accomplished. And this is what I couldn't do. This is where I need help. What stops you from doing that? So maybe you can't talk, but you should be able to write. Writing comes easy to each one of us. That's offline, right? Think about that, right? Think about what your strengths are and how you want to portray those strengths. Think about employee resource groups, right? Each organization has a resource group that is aligned to some kind of a strength. You play chess, you read books, you travel, you dance, you sing, you want to be a part of the pride group, you want to be a part of the women's group. Find out people outside of your circle and start talking to them. And if communicating is becoming an issue, go and see if you can enroll into a TED Talk course, right? There are these Toastmaster courses. Check if you can enroll in that. But help yourself become better. Nobody is going to help you. Only you can help yourself.
That's very true, and I think communication is such an important skill at all times, from
Hmm.
the start to the very end of our careers. And the more we build on it, the more we learn the subtle soft skills also, as you mentioned, right? Being assertive, speaking up for yourself, asking for help, those things
Yep.
make such a huge difference to how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about the world around us as well. Because maybe out of the 5 times that we are asking for that help, maybe we get it 1 or 2 times, and that can make a large difference to our lives. So, yeah, I think I would like to end this with one last question, which is a very interesting one. Who decides the limits of a woman's dream, and how to make sure a woman gets a fair chance to be what she wants to be?
You yourself. Limits to your dreams are defined by yourself. And that's where purpose and passion play a really important game, followed by persistence and patience. Really, really important, right? It's important to dream. Dreams move us forward. Executing on that dreams gives us happiness, right? But it's our dream, so we have to make it happen, right? My husband is a huge ally, a huge supporter. I go to him when I am stuck. I ask him for a lot of help, a lot of advice. But finally, I have to do it. He's not going to do it for me, right? If it has to be executed, if I have to be uncomfortable, I have to get uncomfortable. I have to do it, right? So your allies, your mentors, your counselors, all of them will help. But finally, who has to do it is really you and you yourself. So if there is one person in this entire world who can help you, look at that person in the mirror. That's the person.
I think that's a very empowering note to end this session on. And thank you so much, Sheenam, for being here with us today and for taking us forward on this journey, which I hope we all have a lot of takeaways from to implement in our own lives and to continue growing in our personal and professional lives. I can see that there are a few more questions, but unfortunately, we are a little short on time. So please feel free to reach out to us. The contact details are being shared on the chat. If you have anything that you're struggling with, or the session has brought up certain emotions or thoughts in your mind that you would like to discuss further with the counselor, please do feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help you out. And we would also love to have your feedback shared with us. So I'm just going to share some QR codes on the screen. And yeah, we'll give it a minute for everyone to just take note of this. But thank you so much,
QR
everyone.
code disappeared, Neha.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I have to press the keys. Yeah. Yes, I hope it's visible now. So please feel free to, give us your feedback, connect with us on LinkedIn. We have an app, we have a website. Utilize the resources that we have. Our counselors have made the resources over 25 years of experience, and counseling sessions are, of course, available to all of you. So please feel free to reach out to us. And lastly, thank you, Sheenam, for being with us here today. Very, very valuable insights and a lot of takeaways for all of us. And to the audience as well, thank you so much for taking out your time and for being so participative and asking so many questions.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone, and wish you all a great day ahead.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you, everybody, for having me. Bye bye.